She was born a princess of one of Europe's oldest royal houses. She married a German prince who walked the corridors of Nazi power. She attended high-level social and diplomatic events in Berlin during the early Nazi period, and she would die in a place no princess was ever meant to endure. This is the story of how a princess innocent of any proven crime became a victim of one of history's darkest regimes. Mafalda Maria Elisabetta Anna Romana of Savoy was born on November 19, 1902, in Rome, at the Quirinal Palace, the official residence of Italy's kings. She was the second daughter of King Victor, Emmanuel III of Italy, and Queen Elena of Montenegro. Her father was a short man barely 5 feet tall, but he ruled a nation. Her mother was a towering figure, both physically and in character. Queen Elena stood around 5 feet 11 inches tall, unusually tall for a royal woman of her era. She was often described as having a striking and commanding presence, with eyes as luminous as live coals and hair as black as midnight forest depths. From her mother, Mafalda inherited a love for art and music, and something more important, a sense of duty. During World War I, when Mafalda was just a teenager, she accompanied her mother on visits to Italian military hospitals. Queen Elena had turned part of the Quirinal Palace into a hospital ward. She sold signed photographs of herself to raise funds for the Red Cross. Mafalda watched. She learned. She absorbed the quiet strength that would define her. She had 4 siblings. Her older sister, Yolanda. Her younger brother, Umberto, who would one day become the last king of Italy. Her younger sisters, Giovanna and Maria Francesca. The Italian people adored the royal family. Newspapers called young Mafalda the darling of her father's people. She was baptized with the full name Mafalda Maria Elisabetta Anna Romana. She grew up in a palace. She attended glittering balls. She met princes and kings, and she was expected to make a brilliant marriage. In the summer of 1925, a garden party was held in Rome. Among the guests was a German prince named Philip of Hesse. Philip was the grandson of German Emperor Frederick III. He was handsome, aristocratic, and connected. He and his brother Christoph later became associated with the Nazi Party during its rise in Germany. Mafalda met him at that garden party. Something clicked. The engagement was announced quickly. On September 23, 1925, they were married at Racconigi Castle in Piedmont, near Turin. The entire royal family was present. To honor the marriage, a special bronze medal was struck. It depicted Princess Mafalda on one side and the shields of Savoy and Hesse on the other. She was 22 years old. He was 28. Mafalda adopted German citizenship. She moved to her husband's country. She learned the language. She bore him 4 children over the next 15 years, including Moritz, Heinrich, Otto, and Elizabeth, as recorded in historical accounts. From the outside, her life looked perfect. A royal princess, a handsome husband, 4 healthy children, palaces in Italy and Germany. But beneath the surface, a dark political machine was turning. By the time Mafalda married Philip, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, was already a rising force in German politics. Adolf Hitler would become chancellor in 1933. Philip of Hesse was not just a Nazi sympathizer. He was a committed member of the party, and his position gave him direct access to Hitler. Prince Philip's marriage to an Italian princess placed him in a unique position. He became an intermediary, a go-between, linking the Nazi government in Berlin with the fascist government in Rome. For Hitler, this was invaluable. He needed to understand Mussolini. He needed a channel. Philip provided it. She was present at several high-level social and diplomatic events in Berlin during the early Nazi period, where she found herself in proximity to senior regime figures. Senior European political figures attended these gatherings, representing a tense and shifting Europe. Her husband was becoming more deeply embedded in the Nazi regime. He was appointed Oberpräsident Chief Administrator of the Prussian province of Hesse-Nassau in 1933. His territory included the Hadamar Hospital, where, during the war, large numbers of physically and mentally disabled adults and children were killed through the Nazi euthanasia program. The couple were frequent guests at Hermann Göring's country estate. Philipp maintained connections within high-ranking political circles in Nazi Germany. But here is the crucial detail, the detail that would shape her fate. Mafalda did not share her husband's political views. There is no evidence she ever embraced Nazism. She remained, by all accounts, a devoted mother who loved music and art. Her distance from the regime may have been known, and in a system built on suspicion, that alone could be dangerous. In 1940, Italy entered World War II on the side of Nazi Germany. Mussolini marched alongside Hitler. The Axis alliance seemed unbreakable, but by 1943, the tide had turned. The Allies invaded Sicily. Mussolini's government crumbled. On July 25, 1943, King Victor Emmanuel III formally dismissed Mussolini from power and had him arrested. When Adolf Hitler learned that his Italian ally had fallen, he was furious. He ordered German troops to occupy Italy. 8 divisions poured across the border. Philipp, Mafalda's husband, had been aligned with the Nazi regime for years. But by the spring of 1943, he saw the situation clearly. Italy was weakening. The war was turning. Philipp reported the worsening political and military situation in Italy. The Italian army could not hold. Mussolini would fall. Hitler did not respond well to this. To him, the situation increasingly looked like betrayal. Philipp was arrested in September 1943. He was imprisoned in solitary confinement at the Flossenbürg concentration camp, near the Czech border. He would later be transferred to Dachau, where he remained until the end of the war. The Nazi regime had taken Mafalda's husband, but they were not finished with her. In early September 1943, Mafalda received tragic news. Her brother-in-law, King Boris III of Bulgaria, had died suddenly. The circumstances of his death have remained historically debated. Boris had met with Hitler just weeks earlier. Now he was dead. Mafalda traveled to Sofia, Bulgaria, to attend his funeral. Her younger sister Giovanna was married to the late king. While she was in Bulgaria, she learned 2 things. First, Italy had surrendered to the Allied powers. Second, her husband was under arrest in Germany. She also learned that her children had been given sanctuary in the Vatican. They were safe, but Mafalda herself was not. The Gestapo had been watching her. They believed, rightly or wrongly, that she was working against the war effort. Now, with Italy's surrender, with her husband in custody, she was seen as a threat. On September 23, 1943, Mafalda received a telephone call. The man on the line was Hauptsturm IV Karl, Hesse of the German High Command. He told her he had an important message from her husband. Could she come to the German embassy immediately? She walked into the trap. The moment Mafalda set foot inside the German embassy in Sofia, she was arrested. There was no message from her husband. There never was. She was taken into custody and transferred to Germany. For 2 weeks, she was interrogated. She was accused of politically sensitive activities, though the exact charges were never clearly defined. They believed she was using her royal connections in ways that raised suspicion. After her interrogation, she was transported to Berlin. Then, finally, she was deported to Buchenwald concentration camp in Weimar, Germany. Buchenwald was one of the largest concentration camps on German soil. Between 1937 and 1945, tens of thousands of prisoners died there from execution, medical neglect, starvation, exposure, and disease. The camp was staffed by thousands of SS guards. Prisoners were terrorized, beaten, and forced into harsh labor. Mafalda was placed in a special barracks, designated for political prisoners and high-profile detainees. She was housed with the German politician Rudolf Breitscheid and his wife. To hide her identity, she was given a false name, Frau Weber. Despite her status within the camp, she did not hoard what little she had. According to other Italian prisoners who recognized her, she shared her food with them. She helped where she could. She was still a princess. But in Buchenwald, she became something else. On August 24, 1944, American bombers of the United States Army Air Forces conducted a raid over Buchenwald. Their target was a munitions factory located inside the camp complex. But bombs missed their intended target. They struck areas of the camp itself. The explosion struck the area where Mafalda was being held. According to survivor accounts, she suffered severe injuries during the bombing. She was trapped beneath the debris and sustained serious wounds. Hundreds of other prisoners were also affected in the same attack. Mafalda was pulled from the wreckage alive, but the camp's medical facilities had been severely damaged. There were too many wounded, and not enough supplies or doctors. Medical care in the camp was overwhelmed and extremely limited. Days passed. Her condition worsened. The conditions of the camp made proper treatment almost impossible. According to survivor testimony, some form of emergency treatment was attempted to address her injuries. But the situation was far from adequate. She was severely injured during the Allied air raid on the camp in August 1944. According to survivor accounts, her condition worsened in the days that followed, and she later died from complications of her injuries. The date of her death is officially recognized as August 27, 1944, according to the Buchenwald Memorial. Some sources cite August 26th or August 28th. What is certain is that she was 41 years old. Her body was buried in a cemetery in Weimar. The grave register listed her, Unbekannt Frau, unknown woman. The Nazi regime did not announce her death. They concealed it. For nearly 9 months, no one outside the camp knew what had happened to her. Her family had no information. The Italian government did not know. It was only after Germany surrendered, on May 2, 1945, that British newspapers finally confirmed that Princess Mafalda had died in Germany during the war. The Allies liberated Buchenwald in April 1945. What they found was devastating. Mass suffering, severe deprivation, and evidence of widespread abuse. Mafalda's death was just one among tens of thousands. But it was different. She was not Jewish. She was not a political dissident. She was not a known resistance fighter. She was a princess of a royal house that had been allied with Nazi Germany until the year before. Why did she die? Historians suggest that after Italy's surrender, members of the Italian royal family were viewed with deep suspicion by the Nazi regime. Adolf Hitler blamed the Italian leadership for Mussolini's removal. Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels wrote harshly about members of the Italian royal family in his diaries. Mafalda, the king's daughter and the wife of a German prince, was caught in that shifting political reality. Her husband, Philip of Hesse, survived the war. U.S. forces liberated him from Dachau concentration camp in 1945. After the war, he faced consequences for his involvement with the Nazi regime, including financial penalties, but was not imprisoned long term. He lived until 1980. He died in Rome at the age of 84. Her children survived. They had been placed in the safekeeping of the Vatican in 1943, and they lived through the war. Mafalda? She did not. After the war, Mafalda's remains were exhumed from the anonymous grave in Weimar. She was reburied at Kronberg Castle in Hesse, Germany, the seat of her husband's family. In 1995, the Italian government honored her memory. A postage stamp was issued bearing her image. But there is another gentler memorial to her memory. You may have eaten pasta called Mafalden, long flat ribbons with wavy edges. They are named after her. Even a town in Italy bears her name. The municipality of Ripalta sul Trigno in the Molise region was renamed Mafalda in 1903 in honor of her birth. And the passenger ship Principessa Mafalda, launched in 1909, sailed the oceans carrying her name. Her grave remains at Kronberg Castle. It is tended by her descendants, the memory of what happened to her, an innocent woman, a princess, a mother of 4 children, who died in a concentration camp because a crumbling regime sought revenge, slowly faded, but it was never completely forgotten. Mafalda of Savoy was born into a world of palaces and titles. She grew up surrounded by wealth, ceremony, and expectation. She was not a politician. She was not a soldier. She was not a spy. Mafalda wasn't a general or a politician. She was a mother who loved art and a daughter who tried to do her duty. But in the eyes of a crumbling regime, her bloodline was a weapon, and her life was the price of their revenge. Born into privilege, caught in history, remembered through tragedy,